Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sharewise webinar. I am your host, Caitlin Chung, and today we're joined by Orion Minerals, sorry, the MD and CEO, Errol Smart. Thank you so much, Errol, for joining me today.
Hi, Caitlin. Yeah, good to join you and hi, all the attendees.
So today, Errol's going to run us through a presentation, and then after that, we'll do a Q&A. So for everyone that's joining us live, you're welcome to pop your questions for Errol in the Q&A function down below. But with that being said, I will hand it off to you, Errol.
Thanks a lot. Let me actually just get the presentation up on screen. Have
Mhm.
you got it there?
Yep, that's perfect.
Perfect. All right, so guys, what I'll be focusing on today is Orion's copper projects, which are the advanced stage projects where we actually in trial mining at the moment on the Okiep project, and we are finalizing the bankable feasibility study on the Okiep project. And then we will actually be using the trial mining impact outcomes for an updated and an optimized bankable feasibility study for Prisca. You guys have all seen the disclaimer, don't believe a word that I say, go do your own research. So just a company snapshot for those people that don't know Orion, and a reminder for those that do know us. We a dual listed company. So our primary listing is on the ASX, secondary listing on the JSE. It's fully fungible shares. So you could buy a share or an equity on one exchange and sell it on the other. We've currently got about 6 billion shares on issue with a market cap of 1.3 billion rand or 110 million Aussie dollars. The split of the shares, where the shares are currently sitting in trading accounts, is about 44% of the shares sitting trading accounts on the Johannesburg Exchange and 56% on the ASX. That's strange because our shareholding shows that South Africans hold 43% of the company. And Australians only hold 23%, Europeans are on 33%. So it shows that the Australians and the Europeans hold via the ASX. That's their preferred trading platform, while the South Africans hold on the South African trading platform. But with that said, the South Africans understand the South African environment better and actively trade. And we've got a massive retail following in South Africa, over 30,000 South African shareholders as retail shareholders. So 75% of trading happens on the JSE and only 25% of trading happens on the ASX. So the ASX is not the price determinant. It's really the JSE. In recent times, there's days we'll have 90% of the trading happening on the JSE. So that's quite interesting. Our largest shareholders are Tembo Capital, that are managed out of London, but it's a European fund. The Delphi Group, which is a German fund, and it's Delphi, Deutsche Balaton, and Sparta. It's actually three different funds. And then Clover Alloys is a South African mining house that are primarily involved in chrome mining, and got involved in the company last year and are still strong and supportive shareholders at 8.8%. Thomas Borman, very well-known individual in the mining industry, ex-BHP Billiton. He spent 5 years as a director of Orion and is still a very strong, supportive shareholder. He's got too much on his plate at the moment and is in a semi-retirement, so he stepped off for our board. Our board is very strong. Dennis Waddell, who lives in Perth, is our chairman and is a long-standing supporter. I'm actually based in South Africa, as is our entire staff. Apart from the company secretary and one administration person in Melbourne, the entire company is actually in South Africa. We don't have any FIFOs. We don't have people flying back and forth. We don't have those costs. We have South African professional staff and operating staff. Godfrey Gonwe, very well-known ex-Anglo-American. He's been a CEO of Anglo Coal. Most recently, he's been the CEO of MC Mining that's been taken over on the ASX. Anthony Lennox, very well-known mining person, he was the MD of Rio Tinto's Palabora copper mine, which is South Africa's largest operating copper mine at the moment. Patience Mpofu is actually resident in Sydney, but a long history in South African mining. And Mark Palmer represents Tembo on our board, and he's based in London. So that's what our company snapshot looks like. Probably the biggest news item, as I travel around the world, very many people say to me, what a fantastic company, what a fantastic project, if only they weren't in South Africa. Our risk, our jurisdictional issues are our biggest challenge in Orion. Our projects, technically, geologically, engineering, all of those factors are extremely strong. But we've always had this South African cloud that hangs over us. That cloud has got darker and darker over the last 6 months as we ran into elections, which were held on the 29th of May. But fantastic outcome, really a great outcome for South Africa. We've ended up with a government of national unity. It was a peaceful transition from having the ANC as the long-standing ruling party with a clear majority. Now there's a government of national unity where you've got three of the large parties all in the government, and the market acceptance of this. Yesterday we saw JP Morgan coming out and has moved us from underweight to overweight. So they didn't even move us to neutral, they move us to overweight. Anchor Capital, which is a big South African fund, Peter Armitage came out and said that South Africa is one of the most compelling investment stories in the world in the short term. So the combination of a South African story that is absolutely going to go superheated over the next couple of weeks, together with the copper story, which is a very strong thematic in the macroeconomics around the world, puts Orion in an exceptional opportunity to have fully permitted projects where we've actually got mining happening in one of the projects, and the other project will shortly be moving to mining. Both of them with bankable feasibility studies in a macro environment where everything is positive, where interest rates are likely to fall, where the local currency, the rand, has dramatically strengthened. And we've got certainty, a medium long-term certainty in our outlook. There's very few opportunities in the world where that can be delivered. And for Orion, I really can't overemphasize what this has meant for us. So the new government, the key things is they have all signed up with the basis of the acceptance of the Constitution. Now, remember, this is the Nelson Mandela Constitution. This was the Constitution that was negotiated from a government of national unity before. It's based on non-racialism, non-sexism. It's got stable municipalities. It's got merit-based public service, and a massive important element that, and economic growth and stability. That's the pillars of this government going forward. So for us as a junior miner in South Africa, the sun is finally shining on us. So our projects are both in the Northern Cape of South Africa. It's 30% of the surface area of South Africa with only 3% of the population. It is a province that has produced over 2.5 million tons of copper historically. At the moment, there's a dribble of copper being produced, but not very much. Orion has, over the last 9 years, done a consolidation of the most prospective brownfields projects and many of the best greenfields territory in South Africa. We've put that together over here, and those are the projects moving forward. So we started this journey in 2015. We've gone through various acquisitions. We've spent 2024 finalizing optimized feasibility studies, and most importantly, we've actually been doing trial mining. So we are currently mining. We've currently got 160 people on site at Prisca, where we're drilling and blasting and moving ore to surface every day. We look at having plants in place and production commencing at the end of next year, at the end of 2025. People always ask, when will it happen? Well, it'll happen roughly 12 to 18 months once the project funding has been completed. Project funding will be completed after the bankable feasibility studies, and those are imminent. We are busy adding the last couple of bits and pieces to that, and by August, it'll all be handed over to the independent experts. The Minerals Corporation are acting as the debt financiers' independent experts for the bankable feasibility study, and we will be complete with that by hopefully end of September. It'll be handed over. We are already in discussion with the debt financiers and the equity financiers and the innovative financiers, the people that are doing offtake related financing. And then we've got a period of resource and reserve growth. We're starting with existing resources and reserves and existing feasibility studies that can give us 50,000 tons per annum of copper equivalent production. This is existing JORC resources. This isn't arm waving. We fully expect to expand this way beyond that. But to have 17, 18 years of production based on our current resources before we discover any more ore is incredibly important. There are very few opportunities in the world where there are mines that are fully permitted. They can come into production in 12 to 18 months, and they've got a big growth profile in front of it. And that's where we are. So this Prieska mine, it's a brownfields project. It was a large mine in its time. It used to have a 3 million ton per annum processing plant. It processed very successfully, produced very good concentrate. So a lot of knowns and a lot of the infrastructure was in place. And that's what's helping us to accelerate this project. So on the left here, you can see the cross section of the ore body. We've got a shaft down to 1,100 meters. We've got multiple roadways. There's about 5 different roadways that reach down to 1,250 meters to this deepest ore. Now, all of the historic mining happened in the steeply dipping ore that was dipping towards the northeast. At about 950 meters depth, the ore body suddenly goes to a reversal, and it dips to the southwest, and it becomes very flat dipping. So that's historically where Anglo-Vol stopped mining. So on the right here, we can see the long section of the ore body. So they mined from 105 meters below surface to 970 meters below surface. There is some ore at 850 meters. We've already got some of the first ore that's available. And then at depth is this ore body where we've already got 31 million tons of JORC compliant resource with 1.2% copper, 3.6% zinc. So 2.6 kilometers of strike. The extensions of this ore body, we honestly believe, on the basis of some of the widely spaced drilling on the outsides, together with geophysics that we've got, and the discovery of a second ore body that's subparallel and underlying the main ore body, that we will probably have 30 to 50% resource upside on this project. So 31 million tons, 9 million tons remaining in these green pillars over here, and potentially another 30 to 50% upside on that. Fantastic ore body. So we had finished a bankable feasibility study on this project in 2020. Our challenges were, it was always a high capital, long lead time. People always asked, where would you find the skills? Where would you get the development team? Where would you house them? How can you do this? How can you establish a mine? How would you go about pumping out the water that's in this mine? There's 9 million cubes of water that we've got to get out before we go to full-scale mining. And what are the sources of finance? Well, we've overcome most of those questions. The first thing that we're going to do is this ore body up on the top left-hand side here, 1.3 million tons at 2.4% copper. That's almost twice the copper grade that we've got in the rest of the ore body, but it's only a third of the zinc grade. Now, the revenue contribution here is predominantly copper, so it's copper that's important for us. That's immediately available. We've gone in, we've pre-developed this ore body now. Over the last 6 months, we've got 160 people operating on the site, We've got the mining happening. We're mining, we're drilling, and we're blasting ore every day. We've got about 30,000 tons of ore on surface already. We are stockpiling more ore as we go. The geotechnical conditions of this mine are fantastic. This is a chamber that was blasted in the 1970s. Note, there's no meshing and lacing. There's no rock anchors required. This ground is standing fantastically well. And what we've proven that in the area where we're going to mine, we've got the same ground conditions. We can put in big machines, we can get economies of scale, and we can get the mining happening. And that's both in the access development and in the ore body. This is mining in the ore over here. We can run 4.5 by 4.5 meter development ends, and we can get efficiency in scale of mining. Those are the key things that we've proven. We've also proven that we can handle events of nature, a 1 in 100-year rainfall event. We've put flood control measures in place, and we've shown that there will not be flooding of this mine, unplanned flooding of this mine. That's very important. The water that is in the mine, we've got to pump out 9 million cubes of water, and we've put in place the pumps. We are actually physically pumping at the moment and able to pump. The key thing is that we're waiting for the main power to be turned on, and that happens next Wednesday, that Eskom is turning on our 15 megawatts of power. So this water flow diagram that we've got over here, more than half of it is in place already, and this retention dam is under construction. It'll be complete in the next month. The actual reverse osmosis plant, this is something that's off the shelf, plug and play, rental units available. We will bring that in and get that into place next year, and it's just an additional measure in our water control system. As I said, setting up a new mine, key things is proving that you've got power. Well, we've constructed a 15 MVA grid power supply system. Eskom, the national power regulator, will be adding that power. And this is them doing the inspection last week. It has been connected next week. As I said, we're currently pumping water. We've established a 4-kilometer water pipeline, and it's a dual water and tailings pipeline that goes to the tailings facility. We've got $80 million of financing lined up from Triple Flag. We've got the IDC as a shareholder, or they in as a convertible note at the moment. They will become a shareholder. They are very big supporters. So we've answered most of the questions of how would the financing of this project happen. This project is really at an ideal time in a market where the world needs copper production with a growth profile. We can deliver that. The other project is our Okiep copper project. This is a project that's produced nearly 2 million tons of copper historically, previously owned by Newmont and Anglo-Val. The district has produced at an average grade of 1.9% copper. For many decades, it produced at over 20,000 tons a year of copper from the existing plant facilities. As I said, originally owned by Newmont, dip in the real terms copper pricing. Goldfields bought it, ran it for a while. Another dip in the copper pricing. Metrex bought it and actually then closed it down, shut down the smelters, shut down the plants, took the best of the people, went and built Ruashi. And then when the copper price responded positively again, this mine was off, and it couldn't actually produce. It needed to be recapitalized. We have gone and acquired a huge portion of this land, about 3/4 of the district we've acquired. We've got 11.5 million tons of JORC resource. We believe that in the existing inventory that's ex-Newmont and Goldfields that wasn't mined, we can easily take that to 50 million tons. This is lower grade. It's 1.3% because it was the lower grade ore from Newmont and Goldfields. But a couple of weeks ago, we drilled one of the highest grade intersections that's been drilled in the world, 50 meters at 5%. There is high grade ore here that hasn't been mined, and we will be proving it as we go. Just as a map, you know, all these little dots that you see, the greens, the grays, the reds, all of these dots are known deposits. The ones that are under the green and the red surface areas there are our projects. That's where we're focusing. We're busy finishing the bankable study on this project at the moment. So just a little bit of stats, and I won't go into there. There's 42 known mines in this district. More than 3/4 of those were on our properties. There's 1,700 outcropping ore body, outcropping mafic ore bodies that could have ore, and about 200 of those have got copper showings. Most of those are on our properties. So these are just the ones on our properties, the clusters. Very importantly, the best ore in this district was not outcropping ore. There were only 3 of the historic mines had the best ore actually outcropping. It was subsurface that the best ore, both in volume and grade, developed. Most importantly, this Karulisberg in this area 5 over here, the best ore there only developed at 1,000 meters below surface. Those are the deepest mines. All the other mines in this district are really only down to 400 meters. There's fantastic opportunity here, and that's where we've got drills busy turning at the moment and a good outlook. So fully permitted mines, exploration ongoing, modern exploration happening, BFS is almost complete, and we've actually got mining happening on one of our sites at the moment. So that's where we are at the moment. Caitlin, I think we can go through some of the questions if you like.
Thank you so much, Errol. Thank you for such a good presentation. So for those, I know a lot of you have joined throughout the presentation, so just in case you missed it, you can pop your questions that you'd like to ask Errol in the Q&A box below. I see someone's raised their hand. If you could put your question in the chat so that we can get through it, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you. But to get us started, Errol, so I know your next door neighbor at Okiep, which is also the JSE listed Copper 360, was recently quoted in the Mining Weekly as saying, "We're currently seeing that there's potentially 1.2 to 1.5 billion tons of copper in the ground." And Orion recently announced that you had drilled a spectacular intersection of nearly 50 million at 5% copper on one of your projects. So how does Copper 360's geology compare to your projects? And do you see potential on your ground as what the C360 project has?
Okay, a lot of questions there. Firstly, the intersection was 50 meters at 5%, not 50 million. And I think that's probably true of that quote about Copper 360. I doubt that Jan Nelson said that there's 1.5 billion or 2 billion tons of copper in the ground. It's probably more than likely that he said 1.5 to 2 million tons. Million, not billion, because otherwise we'd be dealing with 10 times historically. Geologically, the ground is identical. The ore bodies are identical. I can tell you that Copper 360 will drill similar grades to what we've drilled. We will have big tonnages of ore. So the extensions are good. We are regulated by ASIC, the Australian Companies Office, and the ASX, and I'm not even allowed to make those kind of arm-waving statements. I can tell you that we are obviously very excited about the ground. We believe that there is an enormous amount of copper still to come over there. There is high-grade copper to come. I would say very, very easily as much as what was mined historically. So 2 million tons of copper. I can't see why that won't be done again. And we are getting really good results in our drilling as we go at the moment.
It was 50 meters, my apologies, not 50 million. Another question, what status is the mine permitting at PCZM and Okiep?
So Prieska is a fully permitted mine. Everything's in place. All the sub-permits and enabling things are in place. So there's nothing waiting. As I said, we're currently mining over there. We will be constructing a plant and a tailings facility over the next 12 months. Okiep is almost fully permitted. It's waiting for the water right and the sign-off on the engineering design of the tailings facility. That's something that takes very long in South Africa. It can take you years and years to get the environmental and the water use approvals for your tailings management. We started that process about 3 years ago. We are told that the final sign-off is imminent. It is sitting on the minister's desk. As I also said, we've just gone through an election, so the ministers aren't at their desks to sign papers at the moment. But we expect certainly in the next weeks or short months, we will have both Okiep and Prieska fully permitted.
Okay. And who was appointed to do your bankable feasibility studies for PCZM and Okiep?
So we took a decision, and bearing in mind that we've been running these bankable studies since 2019, so we've got a lot of experience in that. We decided not to go to any one of the engineering companies and get a cut and paste job, which is you very often see. So we have got 10 contributing independent contractors and consultants into each of the bankable feasibility studies. The project management of coordinating those 10 independent consultants is done by our own in-house team, and they've pulled it all together, but it really is just a coordination job. All the work is done by independent experts, and they're the big names. It's, Fraser McGill did the financial modeling. We've got Metsi done the metallurgy. We've got Improtech running with the plant design, Eco Elementum running with tailings. So all the big names are involved, but we have coordinated it, and we don't have a cut and paste of somebody else's feasibility study. It is a bespoke from first principles done for our mines.
Okay. And when can we expect to see first production?
Yeah, first production is 12 to 18 months from financing. Financing will partly depend on when the banks. So, we talk about bankable feasibility studies, but there's no definition of what a bankable feasibility study is. A bankable feasibility study is a feasibility study that one or other debt financier has accepted, or a group of debt financiers have accepted to provide debt financing. The reality is that we'll have a plus minus 10 to 15% feasibility study complete in probably 6 weeks' time.
Okay.
We may well publish that and make it available, and we are already in discussion under confidentiality with a lot of finance organizations. Most importantly, the off-takers are playing a more and more important role in financing of mining projects worldwide, and we are in discussions with off-takers, both on the off-take terms and potentially to provide financing. Those that provide financing will get preferential attention on the off-take as we go forward. But so we expect about 6 months of dealing with the financing. We may get underway earlier with the construction with some of the parties that we're speaking about, but the final elements of the financing will probably take about 6 months, and then 12 months of construction. As I said, Prieska, we are physically mining and stockpiling ore today. So it is a mine. It just doesn't have a concentrator yet.
Okay. You were talking about in your presentation the market sentiment following the election. The South African rand is also projected to strengthen in the coming weeks. So how will this all affect Orion and your projects?
Yeah, look, that's actually a very interesting question. When you're going into construction, the best thing that you could possibly ask for is a strong currency. The producers at the moment prefer to have a weaker currency because they're earning their revenue in dollars. It's converted into rand, and they're repatriating it in rands, and reporting their profits and their profit margins in rand. When you're going into acquisition and construction, a lot of the stuff is bought from offshore. So your machines, all your hydrocarbon products, so your diesel, your oil, your tires, all of those things, your transport costs, which are a massive cost involved in the construction phase. All of those things are very sensitive to the rand and the local currency. So having a strong rand at the moment is an absolute dream. It's the best thing that we could ask for. as we're going into acquiring machines and that. Remember, most of our financing will be done in South Africa. So we will be financing predominantly in rands. We'll be spending rands to build, but we will need to convert those rands to euros and dollars and to yuan to go and buy our capital goods. So we're very happy that we've got a strong currency at the moment, and also just stability. You know, in the banks world, they want to see stability, and they don't want a lot of volatility. The rand volatility over the last week, which has all been on the best side, it's a strengthening of the rand as being good, but volatility sometimes, you know, creates an uncertainty that we've got to factor in. But at the moment, it's all going in our favor.
Okay. And we have a lot of questions asking if Orion is still on track for the first sale at the end of 2025.
Yeah, I would say where we are now, 18 months from now, I think there's a very strong reality that will happen from Priska. Okiep, it's touch and go. I think that might push into 2026. But Priska, I think we're on track. We'll be in production at the end of 2025.
Okay. The electricity supply in South Africa is in short supply. What are you doing to manage blackouts and power shortages?
Okay, that's also an interesting thing that's changed. You know, the South Africans will be aware that the Minerals Council in South Africa and Business for South Africa have got very involved in assisting the government and the parastatal institutions in improving the power supply problem. We've just gone through, I think it's 85 days now without any power blackouts. So we've had the best power security in the last 3 months than what we've had probably in the last 5 years. It is improving. It's improving strongly. This new government of ours, I would imagine, is going to be more supportive of the private institutions' involvement. So that takes a lot of the volatility risk out of it. The other thing that has been very important is independent power producers and particularly renewable energy power producers. We in discussions and advanced discussions at the moment with a renewable energy power producer, and there are a couple of them. So we're in discussions with a few of them. But one in particular is offering terms at the moment which would be 20% lower cost than the Eskom supply cost, 90% certified renewable energy. So if essentially we will be producing green copper and certified green copper on our side. That's a huge opportunity. So when you speak into the off-takers and the debt financiers, that green high ESG credibility is very important. So all of those things coming together, I think we're in a very good state. We have put a megawatt of standby diesel generation on site, and we may put a little bit more. But right now, for the last 4 months, we haven't been affected by power outages, and we think that we'll be in a good position to maintain that very high energy supply.
Okay. What is the procurement process for becoming an approved vendor and criteria for selection?
Look, we've been building since 2018 already. We started working with our local communities and South African. So in South Africa, when you speak about local procurement, it's South African procurement. Then the next tier is our province, so the province of the Northern Cape. And then the key tier is local, as in our host community. So we've been working with our host community to build that procurement arrangement. It is complicated. There's always elements of some people that want to get unfair access to tenders and the like. We cannot and we will not give unfair tender awards to people. But we've got some of our best suppliers at the moment are actual from the local host community. One of the guys that are doing all of our power installation is actually a host community company, and they've done fantastic work for us. Our catering, you know, 53% of our staff are from our local community. Now, remember, this is a local community where there's been no mining since 1991. So to be able to recruit, train, and use local employees, and we put a lot of pressure on all of our suppliers to have a local depot and employ local staff in the depot. Our contractors are encouraged to use local staff in part of their procurement. We encourage women in mining involvement. So all of that has been part of a process. You know, we've won the Ahmed Award. The Ahmed Award. We've won all sorts of awards for CSR. So it's something that we pay a lot of attention to. We believe it's the best practice, and we believe it goes to sustainability in mining. And interestingly, with Triple Flag, we wouldn't have got access to the Triple Flag financing unless we had those high ESG standards. So it's a work in progress. It's never over. We've got to continue building capacity, but we are getting there, and it's very good. And any suppliers on this call can go to our website. There's a supplier registration website. Equally, there's a potential employees registration. You go upload your CV, or you go upload your supplier status. There is a whole pre-registration for suppliers that proves their credentials as local suppliers. And any tenders or contracts that are put out, we go through a very strict process and a points process. And locals, women empowerment, all of those give very high scores.
Okay. How do you manage LOM changes? Is there a smooth handover between the exploration, construction, and operational teams?
Well, this is probably one of the things that we've been most successful with this 12-month program. Look, we've been physically mining. We drew down on the first financing from IDC and Triple Flag in November last year. The beauty of going through a trial mining startup is before we had a concentrator and we were under pressure to have product for sale, we've gone through all the teething pains. So we've had a 12-month handover from the exploration team to the mining team. The mining team is now completely recruited. The exploration team are hardly involved. It's only the mineral resource manager and mineral resource executive that's still involved in the project. The ongoing project now, but at both Okiep and at Prisco, are in the hands of the mining teams that are site resident and operated. And we've had, well, 9 months of actually going through that with teething pains. You know, not everybody that we employed survived until now. Some people have had to be replaced. But we've done that before day zero, effectively, and the clock ticking and people measuring us on our daily outcomes. So any mine startup has got a lot of problems. We've gone through them, we've solved them, we've proved them, and we can show people the outcomes. And I think that's the great thing that we've been able to do. And we de-risk the project by doing that.
Okay. Will Orion be putting up a smelter or upgrade the current setup, and when will this happen?
Look, we all dream of having our own smelter one day. But, you know, when you being bid 95, 96% payable on a copper concentrate, it's difficult to justify the capital and operating expenditure on a smelter. It will come eventually. There are definitely benefits in doing it in the long term. We would lean away from smelting. We've done a lot of work on metal vapor refining. We're doing a lot of work on hydrometallurgical leaching. We would prefer going away from energy intensive smelting. And it's just not as environmentally friendly. It's difficult to build an environmentally friendly smelter, but it is quite viable to build an environmentally friendly metal vapor refinery or leach plant. And that's what we will probably look at in the future. We've got a whole team working on that at the moment. We're looking at the optimized case. Right now, first focus was prove the ore. We've done that. Second focus was do the bankable studies. We've done that. Third is build the mines and actually produce concentrates that are saleable. And then the fourth one will be putting those concentrates in a local smelter or refinery.
Okay. And have you considered capital raising to unlock the full funding?
Yeah, look, eventually we're going to have to do a capital raise. Everybody knows that there's a capital raise coming at some time. I mean, some people think it'll happen yesterday. Some people think it'll happen in 2 months' time. Some people it'll happen in 6 months' time. The reality is it will happen when we've negotiated a good deal with the right future shareholders. So equity raising, at the moment, for Prisco, we know very accurately what we need, or we're very close to making a final decision on what we need. Okiep, we're probably still 3 months away from knowing exactly the quantum that we need. But we are in discussions with a number of potential equity funders. And when we find accord with them, we will go. We always have had the practice from day one that we will come back and offer it to our existing shareholders in parallel. So we won't exclude the current shareholders and even our retail shareholders, by doing a share purchase plan or something like that. Everybody will get a chance to participate on the same terms. Nobody will be excluded. And that's important for us.
And so I know you mentioned, was it Prieska, that you know how much funding you need? Someone's asking what this number is so that you can commence production.
Yeah, look, the ASX compliance guys will lock me up if I gave you that number today. But I think we've published enough data and information that people can see where we're going. Realistically, it's going to be somewhere between probably the 250 to 300 million Aussie dollars. So, let's say 3 billion Rand to 4 billion Rand is a total funding requirement. Of that, equity probably around 30%, because we've got the triple flag financing for Prisca lined up. That's 80 million US dollars. We're in discussions with debt financiers. We're in discussions with offtake related financiers. And we're in discussions with a lot of like the build, own, operate, transfer on the processing plant. So the total ticket, the mix of financing, is being finalized as we speak. And when we finally know what it is, we will go. We are getting a lot of inquiries at the moment. The good election outcome has been fantastic for us. So, if it happens, when it happens, we will go.
What were some of the higher copper grade deposits mined at Okiep historically?
Yeah, look, the Okiep mine itself was an absolute stonker. That was a brilliant mine. I think it mined about 900,000 tons at 21%. It was a very high grade mine. There were a number of the mines that were sort of 5 to 10% for smaller tonnages. It's quite difficult, in the historic reports, the mines will show what they milled, but generally they had big teams of ladies, and they particularly used ladies to do ore sorting by hand. So they had these big tables that they used to pass the ore over, and women would line up and sort the ore by hand, because women have got a better sense of texture and color. So they see ore better than men. It's a genetic fact. Now, modern technology allows us to do it with scanners. And the world of AI is a lot more efficient, and we prefer our ladies not to have rough fingers. So, we will be looking. We're doing a lot of work on XRF and XRD sorting and the likes. The Rados technology is the leader for us at the moment, that actually allows us to do XRF sorting. So we showed that very high grade hole that we drilled, that we can produce a 10% copper concentrate that could go to our mill. So there is the ability to sort the ore and get higher grade, and sorting the waste out. And that's a key thing at Okiep particularly. There's a lot of internal waste, and the choice is, do you just throw it into a big mill and at low grade, or do you sort the waste out and put the higher grade ore in the mill?
Okay. How will you transport the bulk of the product from the Northern Cape?
Look, we have got at Prisco, we've got a rail siding 43 kilometers from the mine site. Part of this whole revival of the rail system in South Africa is about private concessioning. So there are discussions happening with contractors that want to do private concessioning and rail haul. We've got a very good road system. All of our mines are on tarred roads that go to the ports, so we can road truck if necessary. So we do have a lot of opportunities.
Okay. I thought Prieska was already fully permitted. What permits do you still need?
No, Prieska is fully permitted. There's no permits requiring, and including some of the important things like the water pipeline from the Orange River is being transferred into our hands. We've got Eskom, all of that. So Prieska is fully permitted. It's only Okiep where we require a water use license.
Okay. Um, at PCZM mining and stock has PCZM mining and stockpiling of material begun? Is there a reason the processing plant is not built yet?
Yeah, no, as I said, we mining every day. We are stockpiling ore on surface at PCZM. So we've been doing that for 6 months already now. The next step, the building the processing plant and the tailings facility is dependent on the project financing, the complete project financing. So we raised a total of 370 million rand from the IDC and Triple Flag to do this trial mining phase and prove the mining plan that we were looking to pursue. That then goes into the bankable study. The outcome of the bankable feasibility study then allows us to finance the processing plant, the concentrator. And, it's easy to build a concentrator. The thing that's actually takes time and is a huge cost. It actually costs as much, if not more, than the plant itself, is the tailings facility. So that is what we starting with the construction. We're busy with the construction at the moment of the first tailings facility. So those two elements will come in place over the next 12 to 18 months, and then we will have concentrates for sale.
Okay. We have a few questions. Perhaps you should go back to the slide that covered the shareholders. So the first one was, what is the average number of shares held by retail investors? If you just wanted to reiterate.
Yeah, so we've got about 48% of the shares are held by the top 10, which are institutionals and high net worths. So between the board and those funds on the right-hand side there, you see 46% of the shares are held by those parties. There's about another 3 or 4 institutionals that going to 51%. That's where we are. The balance are all retail, and it's probably been one of our big successes in South Africa. When we did the introductory listing on the JSE, it was done specifically so that every South African could actually get access to shares. There's a historical legacy in South Africa that people feel disenfranchised because the average South African can't actually be a shareholder in mines. Well, that's not true, but most importantly is giving that access. So we went and we did the listing on the JSE. The JSE has got extremely low transactional pricing. To go and do a block trade on the JSE can cost you, $3 or $4 will cover a block trade. On the ASX, less than $500 is considered an unmarketable parcel. In South Africa, you will find low income earners going to their bank manager and saying, listen, I've got 1,000 Rand, $100, less than $100. Please go buy me Orion shares. And they can do that, and it's cost effective for them. So that's why we've got about 38, we've got more than 30,000 retail South African shareholders. And I'm very proud of that. We drive into the town in Prieska, or I drive into the town at Okiep at Springbok, and people will walk up to me on the street and come and speak to me. They recognize me, and they are a shareholder in our company. It's a great sense of community involvement. You walk down the road and people will walk up to me and be angry with me because the share price has gone down, or over the moon because the share price has gone up. You can't do that in Perth.
No. Um, and then someone's asked what your cash burn rate and current cash and liquidity position is. I can see cash on hand is here, right?
Yeah, so cash in hand is there. At the last quarterly, we had about 9 billion. We've gone through a very high cash burn while we've been doing the trial mining. We will be making the decision now to either slow down the ongoing mining. It's no longer trial mining. It's now actually mine development. So we could crank ourselves down to, $1 million a month if we wanted to, if we chose to do that. Our wish is to be spending a lot more than that. We'd like to be spending, a couple of $100,000 a month on exploration drilling. We'd like to continue the mining at Prieska and accelerate it. All those questions about will we be in production in 2025? Well, the more cash we have in our hands right now, the more certainty that we have that we will be in production at the end of 2025. So depending on cash availability, that depends on the burn rate. Minimum burn rate, I could crank it down to $1 million a month if we needed to do that. That's not our first prize. Our first prize, the copper market is smiling, the ducks are quacking, people want development projects and they want exploration projects, and we have both. We need to fund those and keep them moving.
Mm. Do you have a view on why there are no large local asset management companies becoming shareholders, given that there are some that are shareholders in Copper 360?
Yeah, I guess it's all about terms at the end of the day. It's also quantum. We've raised a lot of money on the markets over the years. The you know the when I do it, I've just done a roadshow through Cape Town again, and people say, when are you going to have a market cap of greater than 2 billion rand? That's one of their key criteria. So, well, we'll have a market cap of over 2 billion rand very shortly, depending on the share price and how much capital we raise. And secondly, liquidity. Now, neither ourselves or Copper 360 or any of the juniors in South Africa have got good liquidity. And that's a problem. The fund managers want liquidity in the stock. We've had improved liquidity, and we do get volumes of trading in periods. We see that that's maturing. It's going to mature a lot as we go into the next 6 months and the project financing. And right now, we've got a number of the institutional or the funding institutions in Cape Town, Joburg, that have been phoning me over the last few days and saying, right, the election's behind us. How do we get involved? So there's an ongoing discussion with a number of these institutions at the moment.
Okay. Another question. When will the dewatering process eventually come to an end?
It's a 3-year program, pumping at 500 cube an hour. Those pumps that we installed, we actually test ran them at 600 cubes an hour last week. Once the power is connected and we've got the first evaporators in place, we'll start pumping at 500 cubes an hour. At that rate, it's 3 years. But remember, we've got about 3 million tons of the crown pillars and the residual pillars available above the water. So the feasibility study is being done on the basis of a 40,000 ton a month concentrator that operates during that first 3 years. And then we commission the 200,000 ton a month concentrator that kicks in 3 years' time.
Okay. What is the conditions of buntings in the shaft below the groundwater and total shaft condition?
Yeah, that's obviously a mining person asking that question. It's actually fantastic. The water is not acid, and that's really important. The EH and pH of the water is very favorable. The lowest pH is a 6.8. We've done stratified water testing, so there isn't corrosion of the main steel work. The buntings are very good quality manganese steel. We actually sent divers down underneath the water and we cut out some steel and brought it to surface for comparison. And there was less than 15% corrosion. The original buntings that were put in the shaft could handle 100% over our design capacity. So we are well above design capacity with the buntings that are in the shaft. We've also put an ROV in the shaft and sent it down to the bottom and done a visual inspection. And other than your light grating steel, some of your pipe work, that has deteriorated because of EH conditions in the water. But with the buntons themselves, that manganese steel is in very good condition, and that's fine. The light steel work, we always plan to strip that out anyway and replace it. It's a minor irritant.
And so what happens to all the water being pumped? Can this be turned into fertilizer?
Yeah, we did a fantastic study on actually producing fertilizer. Technically, commercially, it works. It makes money. It would add another nearly $100 million to the capital projects. So we have shelved it for now. We will process the water and produce a super concentrated brine that we will store. That brine will, in the future, be turned to fertilizer. We're starting a discussion now with the local farmers cooperative. In South Africa, you have these big farmers cooperatives, and trying to see if we can do a joint venture again with locals. We like doing these peripheral joint ventures with locals. And because we've done the feasibility study and we've actually proved that we can produce a fertilizer, we'd like to do it, but it can't become a criteria for getting the mine into production. So for now, we'll treat the water. Some of it will be recovered to a quality that can be used for agricultural uses. The balance will be stored as a brine, and that brine can eventually be turned into a fertilizer in future.
Okay. What role will technology play at Prieska? Are there plans for implementation of various or autonomous solutions?
Yeah, in the long term, I think that's where mining's going. We've got 18 years life at the moment of our mine before we do anything, before we prove any additional ore. As I said, we expect to go at least 30 to 50% longer than that. So you're looking at a 25-year life mine. The mines that were being mined 25 years ago worldwide look completely different to the mines that are being mined today. So there will be increased automation. We are busy installing the infrastructure for that at the moment. So we talk about being enabled as opposed to be installed at the moment. We've got to be realistic in South Africa, what's available, what's off the shelf, and the cost and the time to implement is critical to us. So we making sure that we increase the future, and that's pretty impressive stuff. South Africa is still running some of the biggest mines and the deepest mines in the world are being operated in South Africa. So the technology is available here.
Okay. Just conscious of time, we'll only take a few more questions. How will unions and strikes influence Orion?
Yeah, look, this is the third world. Unions and potential strike action, union activity will probably play a role in the future. Right now, we've got a very satisfied labor force. We don't have any challenges whatsoever. We believe in doing the right things for our people, and that's both our community and our staff. We it's something that has to be managed and actively managed, and I think we're doing it very successfully at the moment.
Okay, and we got a question that I think is good for us to end off on. What is your take on the future of copper worldwide?
Yeah, listen, copper's on a rocket. We see that the big financing institutions, the likes of the Sprots, are busy buying into physical copper at the moment. So we've had Sprott is one of the big funds in the world that funds mining equities. They provide debt financing. They provide royalty financing. They're running out of opportunities, and now they're actually buying into physical metal-based stocks. The whole renewable energy drive, the whole energy transition, whether you a copper believer, a carbon believer, or carbon denialist, the world is cleaning up its act. The world has decided it will clean up its act, and it should. We need to clean it up. There's going to be increased electrification and a cleaner world, and copper is at the core of all of that.
Mm.
And that is what's going to drive it. I do believe and I do buy personally into the thesis that that there's an incentive pricing of between 10 of 12,000 US dollars a ton and 15,000 US dollars a ton required to just discover and develop new copper mines. So I can see for the next decade, those are the kind of prices we're going to be looking at. So all of those elements, that's what we set out 10 years ago. That's what our vision was, and that's what we're delivering now.
Okay. Well, with that being said, thank you so much, Errol. Thank you to everyone that submitted questions. Sorry we couldn't get through to all of you, but if you'd like, you're welcome to send us an email and I can pass them on to Errol to address. Someone's asked, can we access this presentation? Well, this recording will be posted onto YouTube if you want to watch it again. But Errol will shareholders be able to access the presentation itself?
Yeah, we'll put this once it's on YouTube, send us the link. We'll put it on our website. So go to our website and you'll be able to find it there.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Errol, for your time. And have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending.